Ladies, let me tell you something. If a man goes quiet on you for days and then pops back up like nothing happened, I need you to hear me clearly. That is not him being busy. That is not him needing space. That is a man who has never had to wonder if he'd lose you. And today we're going to talk about something much deeper than that. We're going to talk about what it looks like when the opposite is true, when a man's soul has been touched. Not his ego, not his appetite, his soul. Have you ever sat there at night, phone in your hand, wondering whether anything you've done for him actually landed anywhere? Wondering if he feels you the way you feel him? Wondering if all that love you pour out is hitting a wall or hitting a heart? Sister, that question has an answer. And it's not in what he says, it's in what he does. There are 7 signs, 7 unmistakable signs, that you have touched a man so deeply that he doesn't even have language for it. Most women never learn to read these signs because nobody teaches us what a moved man actually looks like. We get taught what a playing man looks like. We get taught what a lying man looks like. But a man whose soul has been stirred, he looks completely different than what you've been told to expect. So sit down, get comfortable, pour you something warm, because I'm going to break this all the way down for you. And by the time we're done, you are going to know exactly where you stand with that man, or exactly where you don't. And either way, you're walking out of here with your power back. I promise you that. Now, before we get into the 7 signs, I need to lay a foundation. Because if you don't understand this part, nothing else is going to make sense. See, here's what most women don't know about men. Men are not raised to feel. Men are raised to perform. From the time a boy is 7 years old, the world starts telling him to toughen up, shake it off, don't cry, be a man. His feelings get buried under achievement, under provision, under pride. By the time he's grown, most men have a whole emotional life happening inside them that they have never once been given permission to show. They feel everything. They just don't show anything. You understand what I'm saying? The average man is walking around with an ocean inside him and a faucet on the outside. So when a woman comes along and actually touches something in that ocean, and I mean really touches it, not just his body, not just his pride, not just his need to be needed, he doesn't respond the way a woman responds. A woman who is moved will cry, will talk, will open up, will tell her girlfriends. A man who is moved will act different. He will move different. He will do things he has never done before, and he won't always be able to tell you why. That's why so many good women miss the signs. You're listening for words he was never trained to speak, when all along he's been showing you in a language you were never taught to read. Let me break down what's really happening inside his mind. A man's soul gets touched when a woman reaches the part of him that the world never sees. The scared part, the hopeful part, the little boy part that still wants to be chosen and still wants to be safe. Every man has that part, every single one. The strongest man you know, the most successful man you know, the man who acts like he doesn't need anybody. He has that part, and he guards it like a vault. He has to, because the last time he let somebody near it, somebody mishandled it. Maybe it was his mama. Maybe it was his first love. Maybe it was a woman who used his softness as a weapon, and he swore right then never again. So here's the brutal truth that nobody wants to tell you. A man doesn't give his soul to the most beautiful woman he meets. He doesn't give it to the smartest woman, or the most successful woman, or the woman who does the most for him. He gives it to the woman who makes that vault feel safe to open. And when it opens even a crack, everything about him starts to change. Not overnight, not with a speech, but slowly. In 100 small ways, he starts doing things that men only do when something sacred is happening inside them. That's what these 7 signs are. They are not cute behaviors. They are not surface level gestures. They are the fingerprints of a soul that has been touched. And once you know them, you will never again have to sit in your car after a date wondering where you stand. You'll know. You'll see it plain as day. Now, sign number 1. And I want you to lean in on this one, because it's the one women misread the most. When you have touched a man's soul, he starts telling you things he has never told anybody. And I don't mean his favorite color and his football team. I mean the real stuff, the wound stuff. I've never said this out loud before stuff. It might come out at 1 in the morning. It might come out in the middle of a drive with him staring straight ahead at the road because he can't look at you while he says it. It might come out in pieces over months. But it comes out, he tells you about the father who left. He tells you about the business that failed and how ashamed he was. He tells you about the time he cried in his car and made sure nobody saw. He tells you the thing he did when he was 23 that he still hasn't forgiven himself for. See, here's what men are wired to do. Men are wired to compete, and you cannot compete while exposed. Vulnerability is the most expensive currency a man owns, and he does not spend it on just anybody. He spends it where he feels safe. And safety for a man is not about whether you'll stay. It's about whether you'll use it against him later. A man can sleep with a woman and tell her nothing. A man can date a woman for 2 years and tell her nothing. But a man whose soul has been touched, he starts emptying pockets he didn't even know were full. You've been sitting there, haven't you, wondering why he told you that thing that one night and then acted almost embarrassed the next morning. Don't you dare misread that. That embarrassment is proof of how deep it went. He didn't regret telling you. He was scared of how much he wanted to tell you more. There's a difference, sister, and you need to learn to see it. I knew a woman, let's call her Denise. Denise was dating this man, quiet type, worked in construction, big shoulders, not a lot of words. She kept asking me, he doesn't open up. I don't think he feels anything deep. And then one night, out of nowhere, they're sitting on the couch, some documentary playing neither of them is watching, and he tells her about his brother. The brother he lost when he was 19, the one he never talks about. The one whose birthday he disappears on every single year, and nobody ever knew why. He told her for 45 minutes straight, and when he finished, he got up, kissed her forehead, and went to bed. Denise called me the next day worried because he seemed distant the next morning. I said, baby, distant? That man handed you the key to the deepest room in his house. He's not distant. He's naked and waiting to see if you'll still respect him in the morning. That's what that is. Because here's what happens after a man opens the vault. He watches you. For days, sometimes weeks, he watches how you handle what he gave you. Do you throw it back at him in an argument? Do you tell your whole group chat? Do you treat him like he's fragile now? Or do you hold it the way sacred things deserve to be held? How you carry a man's truth after he gives it to you determines whether you ever get more of it. That's not a game. That's gravity. So here's what you do when a man opens up to you. You don't make it a therapy session. You don't immediately try to fix it. You don't say, you should go talk to somebody 5 seconds after he finishes. You just receive it. You say, thank you for trusting me with that. And then you let it be what it is. Because a man who has been received without judgment once will come back to that well 100 times. And every time he comes back, the root goes deeper. That's how a soul gets touched and stays touched. Not through grand gestures, through safe landings. Now, sign number 2. Listen to me carefully on this one. When you've touched a man's soul, he starts protecting you in ways you never asked him to. And I'm not talking about fighting somebody in a parking lot. I'm talking about 1,000 quiet shields you didn't even notice going up. He walks on the traffic side of the sidewalk without thinking about it. He checks that you got home. Not to check up on you, but because his body genuinely cannot relax until he knows you're safe. He starts remembering the things that make you anxious and quietly steering around them. He mentions you to people. He speaks your name in rooms you're not in, and he speaks it with care. See, here's the thing about men. Protection is the first language of a man's love. Long before he can say, I love you, long before he can even feel it consciously, a man who is being moved will start to cover you. It's primal. It runs underneath his personality, underneath his fear of commitment, underneath everything. A man who doesn't care about you will let you walk through anything. A man whose soul you've touched will feel physically uncomfortable when something comes at you. Even small things, even things you can handle yourself. And here's the part that matters. He does it when there's nothing in it for him. He does it when you're not watching. He does it with people you'll never meet. Let me paint you a picture. It's a regular Tuesday. You're at work and somebody speaks to you sideways in a meeting, and you come home and mention it offhand, not even upset, just telling your day. And you see his jaw tighten. You see him go quiet for a second. He asks one or two questions. Who said it? What did they mean by that? And then he lets it go. But the next week, he's asking how things are with that coworker. He remembered. He filed it. Not because he's controlling. Because anything that touches you, touches him now. When a man's soul has been reached, your pain becomes his assignment. You hear me? Your peace becomes his responsibility. Not because you need a rescuer, but because a moved man cannot sit still while something he loves is exposed. I knew a woman named Rachel. Rachel had been dating this man about 8 months, and she kept saying, I don't know if he's really in it. He's not romantic. He doesn't do big gestures. Meanwhile, this man had quietly fixed the brake lights she'd been ignoring, changed the code on her garage because a neighbor made her nervous once. Once she mentioned it one time, and had a standing order with the coffee place near her office, so that on her hardest day of the week, her drink was already paid for. She almost left that man because he wasn't writing poetry. I said, Rachel, poetry is words. That man is building a fence around your whole life. Men don't do that for women they're passing time with. Men don't even do that for women they like. That is what it looks like when something in a man's chest has been permanently rearranged. But here's where I need you to be discerning, because there's a counterfeit. Control dresses up by protection all the time, and I will not have you confusing the two. Protection says, I want you safe. Control says, I want you small. Protection asks what you need. Control tells you what you'll do. Protection works in the background and doesn't need credit. Control keeps receipts and throws them at you later. A man whose soul you've touched will protect your freedom as fiercely as he protects your safety. He wants you covered, not caged. You feel the difference in your body. Protection makes you exhale. Control makes you brace. Never forget that. So if you want to know whether you touched him past the surface, don't just count the sweet things he does. Watch what he does about the things that threaten you. Watch how he moves when you're vulnerable, when you're sick, when you're scared, when somebody comes against you. A man in surface level attraction shows up for the fun parts. A man with a touched soul shows up for the hard parts, and he shows up without being asked, and he stays without being begged. Now, sign number 3. This is the one that surprises women the most, so stay with me. When you've touched a man's soul, he starts changing. And I mean real, structural, no audience change. He starts becoming a better man, and he does it quietly, and he does it without being asked. Not because you nagged him, not because you gave him an ultimatum, because something in him decided that the man he was yesterday is not worthy of the woman standing in front of him today. Baby, let me tell you something most people won't tell you straight. You cannot change a man. You have never been able to change a man. Every woman who has ever tried has found that out the hard way. But here is what you can do. You can inspire a man so deeply that he changes himself. And that is exactly what happens when a soul gets touched. He starts looking at his own life through your eyes, and some of what he sees embarrasses him. Not because you shamed him, because your standard made him see his own potential. And a man who sees his potential through a woman's eyes will move heaven and earth to become it. It shows up in strange, small ways first. He starts handling things he used to let slide. He starts going to bed at a decent hour. He starts saving money for the first time in his adult life. He calls his mama back. He apologizes. And sister, if you've ever tried to get an apology out of a proud man, you know that is no small miracle. He starts asking himself, what would she think of this? Before he acts. Not because you asked him to report to you, because you live in his conscience now. When a woman's spirit moves into a man's decision-making, that is not infatuation. That is soul contact. Infatuation makes a man act better when you're watching. Soul contact makes him act better when nobody's watching. You've seen the opposite, haven't you? You've watched a man date a woman for 3 years and stay exactly the same. Same habits, same chaos, same immaturity, same excuses. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? That's not because she wasn't good enough. That's because she never got past his surface. A man will perform change for a woman he wants to keep physically. He will only undergo change for a woman who reached him spiritually. Performance has an expiration date. Transformation doesn't. Let me tell you about Tasha. Tasha met this man, Marcus, at a cookout. Marcus was fun, charming, fine, life of the party, and completely allergic to responsibility. 34 years old, still floating, no plan, no savings, no direction, and everybody who knew him had accepted that's just who Marcus was. Tasha didn't lecture him. She didn't make him a project. She just lived her own life with such clarity and such peace. She had her thing. She had her standards. She had her joy. That being around her made him feel, for the first time, the gap between who he was and who he could be. 18 months later, that man had gone back and finished his certification, opened an account with actual money in it, and told his own mother, "She didn't change me. She made me want to meet myself." When his mother repeated that to Tasha, she cried in the car. Because that is what it sounds like when you've touched a soul. He doesn't credit your pressure. He credits your presence. Now hear me on this, because this part is critical. This sign has a dark mirror, and I need you to see it. If a man is only changing while you're watching, only improving when you're praising, only growing when it gets him something, that's performance, and it will collapse the moment the relationship gets hard. Real soul-level change keeps happening when you're mad at him. It keeps happening when you're not around. It keeps happening when there's nothing to gain. So don't just ask, is he changing? Ask, does he change in the dark? That's the question that tells you the truth. And one more thing on this sign. Your job is not to manage his growth. Your job is not to monitor it, grade it, or take credit for it. When a man starts transforming because of you, the worst thing you can do is turn into his life coach. Let him grow. Water it with encouragement, sure. A man growing is a man who needs to hear, "I see you more than ever." But don't become the warden of his progress. You inspired a garden. Don't trample it checking the roots every day. Sign number 4. And this one right here might be the most important one on the whole list, so I need you present. When you've touched a man's soul, he starts making you part of his future. Not in words, but in architecture. And there's a massive difference between a man who talks about the future and a man who builds the future with you in it. Words are free. Architecture costs something. See, here's what's happening inside his mind. Every man, whether he admits it or not, has a plan for his life. Might be a vague plan, might be a 5-year spreadsheet, but there's a picture in there. And for most of his life, that picture has one clear subject: him. His goals, his house, his moves, his name. When a woman touches his soul, something almost violent happens to that picture. She starts appearing in it without his permission. He's looking at a house and he wonders which room she'd claim. He's thinking about moving cities, and the first calculation in his head is what it would do to her. He's planning for a future and catches himself planning for two, and it doesn't scare him anymore. That's the tell. A man in lust plans around you. A man in soul-deep love plans with you before you've ever asked him to, because his mind no longer lets him imagine it any other way. And here's how it shows up on the ground, because I need this to be concrete for you. He stops saying I and starts saying we, not in a speech, just casually, naturally, like the language changed when he wasn't paying attention. He asked your opinion on decisions that don't technically involve you yet. The job offer, the apartment, the big purchase. He introduces you to the people who made him, the family, the oldest friends, the mentor, the people whose opinion he actually fears, because a man does not parade women through his real life. A man protects his real life from women he's not sure about. If you've been to his world, the unpolished, unphotogenic, real one, sister, that means something. He starts leaving things at your place, and I don't mean a toothbrush. I mean pieces of his life. His routine bends around yours. His calendar starts having your name in it by default. Let me tell you something nobody wants to tell you. A man can keep a woman for years, in a beautiful, comfortable, perfectly maintained waiting room. Good morning texts, nice dinners, great chemistry, and not one single brick ever gets laid toward a shared future. And she sits in that waiting room thinking patience is a virtue, when patience without progress is just parking. You are not too much for wanting to be in the blueprint. You have never been too much for wanting to be in the blueprint. A man whose soul you've touched doesn't keep you in a waiting room, because in his mind you already live in the house. He's just building it as fast as his life lets him. Now, and this is the part they don't teach you, the speed doesn't matter as much as the direction. A touched man might move slowly. Some men build carefully because they take it seriously. The question is never, how fast is he moving? The question is the building happening? Is there progress you can point to? Is the picture getting clearer or just getting older? A man who intends a future shows you evidence, regularly, naturally, without you having to drag it out of him like a confession. When you have to interrogate a future out of a man, there is no future. When a man's soul is touched, the future leaks out of him constantly. He can't help it. He's too busy imagining it. I knew a woman named Maya. Everybody's got a Maya story in this work, but this one stays with me. Maya was with a man for 4 years. 4 years. And every time the future came up, he'd say, "Why do we need to label it? Aren't we good?" And they were good. That was the trap. It was good. Comfortable, sweet, easy good. Then life did what life does. They drifted apart, kindly, quietly, and a year later, Maya met another man. And this man, within months, was talking about interest rates and school districts like they were already a family. She called me almost scared. She said, "Is this too fast? Something must be wrong with this." I said, "Baby, nothing is wrong with this. This is what it feels like when a man's soul already signed the paperwork and his life is just catching up. You spent 4 years with a man renting your heart month to month. Now you've met one who's trying to buy. Don't you dare talk yourself out of being chosen clearly. So here's what you do with this sign. You stop listening for promises and start watching for structures. Promises are weather. Structures are climate. And if you realize you've been living in the waiting room, hear me. That is not an indictment of your worth. That is information about his intention. And information is a gift, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Now, sign number 5, and this one is going to poke some of you right in the spirit, because it's the one women are most likely to overlook and least likely to forget once they see it. When you touched a man's soul, he remembers everything about you. Everything. Not because he has a good memory, because you've become his favorite subject. He remembers the story you told him once, in passing, about your grandmother's kitchen. He remembers how you take your coffee and that you don't actually like coffee. You like the ritual. He remembers the name of the coworker who hurt your feelings in March. He remembers that you get quiet, not loud, when you're really angry. He remembers the dream you mentioned at midnight and forgot about by morning. A man whose soul you touch studies you the way a man studies something he's decided to keep forever. See, here's the psychology underneath it. Attention follows value. It always has. A man's mind holds on to what his heart has decided matters. Men forget anniversaries of women they're passing time with, and remember the shoe size of the woman who rearranged them. It's not effort, it's gravity. His attention falls toward you the way water runs downhill. He couldn't stop it if he tried. And here's how you know it's real and not performance. He remembers the things that don't benefit him. Any man can remember your birthday. There's something in that for him. A man in deep remembers the random Tuesday detail, the offhand comment, the thing you said while looking out a window that you don't even remember saying. That's not data collection, that's devotion with the memory attached. And it's not just memory, it's response. He doesn't just remember what you said, he circles back to it. 2 weeks after you mention the thing, he asks how it turned out. You mention a book once and it shows up on your doorstep. You said you were dreading Thursday, and on Thursday morning there's a text that says, "Today's the day, you've got this." Sister, when a man starts responding to your life like it's a story he's invested in, like he's a reader who can't put the book down, something has happened in him that doesn't happen for everybody. That's not boyfriend behavior. That's soul behavior. Let me contrast it for you, because the contrast is the teacher. A man who hasn't been touched past the surface remembers what serves the relationship's present. A man who has been touched remembers what serves your whole person. The first man remembers your favorite restaurant. The second man remembers that your favorite restaurant is your favorite because your daddy used to take you there. And that's why he takes you there on the hard anniversaries, the ones other people forget. One man remembers data. The other man remembers meaning. You deserve meaning. You have always deserved meaning. You've been sitting there, some of you, making excuses for a man who forgets everything. He's just not detail-oriented. He's got a lot on his mind. Men are just like that. Baby, men are not just like that. Men are like that about things that don't matter to them. That same man who forgot your big news can quote you 17 seasons of sports statistics. He remembers the starting lineup from 2009. He remembers every deal he's ever closed and every car he's ever owned. Memory was never the problem. Priority was the problem. And I'm not saying that to shame you. I'm saying that to wake you up. Stop grading his attention on a curve. A man whose soul you touch brings his whole mind to you, and it shows. So what do you do with this? 2 things. First, notice it. Actually notice it, don't brush past it. When a man holds your details like treasure, that deserves to be received, not minimized. Some of you are so used to crumbs that when a man serves you the whole meal, you get suspicious of it. Receive it. Let it be real. And second, stop doing the remembering for both of you. Stop carrying the entire emotional archive of the relationship and then calling his forgetfulness a personality trait. When you do all the holding, he never has to. Lay it down. Watch what he picks up on his own. What a man picks up without being told is the truest inventory of his heart you'll ever get. Sign number 6. Take a breath for this one, because we're going into tender territory. When you've touched a man's soul, he lets you see him weak. Not performatively weak, not the calculated vulnerability some men use as a tactic. Actually weak, scared, uncertain, ashamed, wrong. He lets you see the moments he'd hide from every other person on the planet. He cries in front of you. or almost cries and doesn't leave the room. He admits when he's in over his head. He tells you when he's afraid. And men are afraid far more often than they'll ever let the world know. He lets you see him fail in real time instead of showing you the highlight reel after the fact. Now I need you to understand the weight of this because women underestimate it constantly. For a man, weakness is the most dangerous thing he owns. The world punishes weak men. It has always punished weak men. His father may have punished it. His brothers may have punished it. The boys on the playground definitely punished it. Every man you will ever meet learned before he turned 12 that his weakness, once seen, could be used against him. And at some point in his life, it was. So when a man lets you stand in the room with his weakness, he is handing you the most loaded weapon in his life and trusting you not to pull the trigger. That is not casual. That is the single highest act of trust a man can perform. Higher than any vow, higher than any ring, because those can be taken back. Seeing weakness can't be unseen. He knows that. He showed you anyway. And here's what it looks like on the ground, because it rarely looks like a movie scene. It looks like him going quiet after a failure, and then, instead of disappearing for 3 days like he used to, he stays. He sits in the room with you while he's hurting, even though every instinct is telling him to go lick his wounds alone in a cave somewhere. It looks like him saying, "I don't know what to do." And sister, if you knew what it costs a man to say those 5 words out loud, you would fall to your knees. It looks like him telling you about the diagnosis, the debt, the mistake at work, the thing he's carrying. Before he has the solution, before he has the brave face assembled, he shows you the mess instead of the monument. That's the sign. Monuments are for the public. Messes are for the soul connected. Let me tell you about Denise again. No, let me tell you about her friend, a woman named Carla. Carla almost broke up with her man because he had a breakdown after his business deal collapsed. Not a tidy cry, a real one. And her first instinct, God forgive her, was that she'd lost respect for him because she'd been raised on the same lie he had, that strong men don't fall apart. She called me and I said, "Carla, listen to me. That man has been strong for everybody in his life since he was 9 years old. His mama leaned on him. His siblings leaned on him. His job leans on him. And tonight, for the first time in his entire adult life, he chose a person he could be weak in front of. And he chose you. You are not watching a man lose strength. You are watching a man discover safety. Don't you dare punish the holiest thing he's ever done. And here's the warning section, because here's where most women mess it up. When a man shows you his weakness, 3 things will kill it dead. Number 1, using it in a fight later. The moment "this is why you cried like a baby when" comes out of your mouth, that vault seals shut forever, and it should. Number 2, rushing to fix him. He didn't come to you for a solution. He came to you for a witness. Men have the whole world trying to fix them. Be the one place he doesn't have to be a project. Number 3, losing respect for him and letting him feel it. If he senses that his weakness cost him your admiration, he will never, ever open that door again. And he'll be right not to. You want a strong man? Then be strong enough to hold a weak moment without flinching. That is the whole assignment. Because here's the truth nobody tells you about strength. A man is not strong because he never breaks. A man is strong when he knows where he can break safely. And if you become that place, the one address in the whole world where he doesn't have to perform, you will have a loyalty out of that man that no other woman can touch, no matter what she looks like, no matter what she offers. Beauty is everywhere. Safety is rare. Men do not leave the places where their soul can breathe. Remember that. Write it on your heart. Men do not leave the places where their soul can breathe. And sign number 7, the last one, the one that ties all the others together. When you've touched a man's soul, he stays. And I mean he stays through the things that give him every excuse to leave. He stays through your hard season, not just his. He stays through the argument, through the misunderstanding, through the months where you're not your best self, through the illness, through the money stress, through the grief. When you've touched a man past the surface, conflict doesn't make him pack, it makes him dig in. Because leaving you no longer feels like an option on the table. You have become, in the deepest sense, home. And men fight for home. Men don't fight for hotels. See, here's what's really happening inside his mind when this sign is present. Every relationship has exit moments. Moments where the cost of staying spikes and the mind runs the calculation. Is this worth it? A man on the surface runs that math constantly. Every fight is a near exit. Every hard month is an audition. He's failing in his head. But a man whose soul has been touched stops running the math. Not because he's a fool, because the equation changed. You're not a cost-benefit analysis anymore. You're family. You're the person. When that's true, his question in hard times is never, should I go? It's, what do we do? Watch a man's pronouns in a crisis, sister. They will tell you everything. Your problem is a renter. Our problem is a soul that's been reached. And staying is not the same as enduring. I need to be precise here because some of you are being endured and calling it love. Enduring is a man who stays physically and leaves emotionally. Body present, spirit gone, doing the bare minimum with clenched teeth. Staying is a man who remains engaged through the hard season, still talking, still touching, still fighting for the relationship, still looking at you like you matter even when everything is heavy. Endurance is silent and cold. Staying is loud and warm. You know the difference in your bones. Don't let anybody, including your own fear, talk you out of knowing it. It looks like this. You have the fight, the big one, the ugly one, the one where both of you said too much. And instead of him going dark for a week, instead of the punishment silence, instead of you lying awake wondering if this is the one that ends it, he comes back that night or the next morning. He comes back and says, I don't want to fight, I want to fix. Maybe he's clumsy about it. Maybe the apology is crooked. Men apologize crooked. They were never taught the choreography, but he comes back. He always comes back. He always comes back. A man whose soul you've touched treats the relationship like something to repair, never something to replace. And the second part in your worst seasons, the depression, the diagnosis, the family crisis, the year you were not fun to be around, he doesn't just tolerate you. He covers you. He picks up weight you didn't ask him to carry. He loves you at your least lovable, and he does it without keeping a ledger. I knew a woman, let's call her Angela. Angela got sick. The real kind of sick, the kind that rearranges a whole life. As she told me later that she kept waiting for her man to leave. She'd been abandoned before, and some part of her had already written the ending. She'd push him away, tell him he didn't sign up for this, try to release him from the obligation. And this man looked at her one day and said something she'll carry to her grave. He said, "Stop trying to make me a man who leaves. That's not who I am with you." That's not a line, ladies. Men don't say things like that because it's smooth. Men say things like that when something in their chest has decided, permanently, where it lives. Angela's healthy now, by the way. Married that man. She told me the sickness, as brutal as it was, gave her the one thing she'd never had in love, certainty. Hard seasons are the X-ray of a relationship. They show you the bones. Now let me give you the warning that goes with this sign, because staying has a counterfeit too, and it's the most dangerous one on this whole list. Some men stay because it's convenient. Some men stay because they're afraid of being alone. Some men stay because leaving costs more than staying. And those men will stay in your life for decades while never once touching your soul or letting you touch theirs. The question is never just, did he stay? The question is, did he stay alive inside the relationship? Did he stay tender? Did he stay engaged? Did he keep choosing you, or did he just stop choosing altogether and call it loyalty? Presence without participation is not commitment. It's furniture. And you, sister, did not come to this earth to be somebody's furniture. All right? Now I want to step back and talk to you about the big picture, because knowing the signs is only half of this. The other half is what you do with them. And that's where women either step into their power or give it away. Here's the first thing I need you to hear. If you read these 7 signs and you saw your man in them, if he opens his vault to you, if he covers you without being asked, if he's growing in the dark, if you're in the architecture of his future, if he holds your details like treasure, if he breaks in your presence, if he stays alive through the hard seasons, then you need to do something that might be harder than anything else in this whole video. You need to receive it fully, without suspicion, without waiting for the other shoe to drop. Some of you have been hurt so many times that when the real thing finally shows up, you interrogate it like it's a suspect. You test it. You poke at it. You start fights to see if he'll stay. You withhold to see if he'll pursue. Baby, that is not discernment. That is a wound running the show. And I say that with all the love in the world because I know where it comes from. When all you've known is counterfeit, authenticity looks like a scam. But you cannot heal and sabotage at the same time. A man who is showing you his touched soul deserves a woman who can recognize sacred ground when she's standing on it. Soften, receive, let it be good. You are allowed to let it be good. And here's the second thing, and this one's gonna sting for somebody, but I'm gonna say it anyway, because I'd rather hurt your feelings than watch you waste your years. If you read these 7 signs and you did not see your man in any of them, if he's never opened the vault, never covered you, never grown an inch, never built toward anything, forgets your whole life, hides every weakness behind a wall of anger or silence, and treats every hard season like a reason to check out, then I need you to stop calling that love and start calling it what it is. Convenient access. He doesn't want you. He wants access to you. And access without depth will starve you slowly while looking from the outside like a relationship. You are not crazy for wanting more. You are not too deep. You are not too emotional. You are not asking for too much. You are asking a man to be present in the relationship he's in, and that is the floor, not the ceiling. Stop negotiating with your own needs. Stop shrinking them down to a size that doesn't inconvenience him. A man whose soul can be touched by you. And sister, there are men out there whose souls are ready for you, will not experience your depth as a burden. He will experience it as the thing he's been looking for his whole life. Now here's the power move that changes everything. And I want you to write this down in your spirit. The women who touch men's souls are not the women who chase hardest, love loudest, or sacrifice most. They are the women whose own souls are awake. That's it. That's the whole secret. A woman who knows who she is, who has her own life, her own joy, her own standard, her own peace. That woman reaches parts of a man that a performing woman never can. Because men can feel the difference between a woman who needs him to complete her and a woman who chose him to accompany her. One is pressure. The other is privilege. And men rise to privilege. They always have. So here's what you do instead of chasing. You build a life so full, so genuinely yours, that your presence becomes valuable in the exact way a soul can feel. You develop yourself, your mind, your peace, your walk with God, your friendships, your purpose, not as a strategy to get a man, as a way to become a woman who can actually hold a man's soul when he hands it to her. Because that's the part nobody talks about. It's one thing to touch a man's soul. It's another thing entirely to be equipped to keep it. Depth answers depth. Wholeness calls to wholeness. You cannot attract what you haven't cultivated. Stop trying to be chosen and start becoming undeniable, and watch how the whole game changes. And here's what happens in his mind when you make this shift, because it is predictable, and I've watched it happen 1,000 times. When a woman stops auditioning and starts standing in her own fullness, a man who is comfortable starts getting curious. Then he starts getting nervous. Then he starts getting intentional. Loss aversion is the oldest motivator in the male psyche. A man values what he knows he could lose, and he can only lose what was never fully guaranteed. When you hand a man your whole self as a blank check, he has no reason to rise. When you make it clear, not with words, with your life, that you are a whole woman who chooses but does not beg, something ancient wakes up in him. He stops managing you and starts pursuing you, not because you played a game, because you remembered what you were. Now here's where most women mess up this power move, so listen carefully. They do it as a tactic. They pull back to make him chase. They post things to make him jealous. They manufacture mystery. And it works for about 3 weeks because tactics have no roots. Then the performance gets exhausting. The mask slips and everything collapses back to where it was. Sister, this isn't about games. This is about self-respect. The shift only works when it's real, when your full life is actually full, when your standard is actually a standard, when your peace would genuinely survive his absence. Men have a radar for the difference between a woman performing wholeness and a woman possessing it. Do the real work. There are no shortcuts to being a woman whose presence touches souls. But every step of that work pays you back whether he stays or goes. And that's the beauty of it. You become the prize you were chasing. Let me say a word to the woman who's single right now, because I feel you. You're watching this and wondering if any man out there even has a soul that can be touched. You've seen too much. You've been through too much. The pickings look slim and the disappointments look endless. Hear me. There are men, grown, healed, ready men, who are praying right now for a woman they can give their whole depth to. Men who are tired of surfaces. Men who have done their own work and are sitting in their own fullness, waiting for a woman who could meet them there. You don't find those men by performing. You cross paths with those men by becoming. And when you do, these 7 signs won't be a checklist you hope for. They'll be a description of your ordinary Tuesday. And a word to the woman who's in it right now and recognized her man all over these signs. Don't get lazy. Souls need tending. The vault stays open only where it stays safe. Keep receiving him. Keep witnessing him. Keep being the place his soul can breathe. The greatest love stories aren't the ones that start with fireworks. They're the ones where 2 people keep choosing depth long after the fireworks fade. Tend the fire. It's worth it. He's worth it. You're worth it. You're worth it. Let me bring this home now because I want you to leave this place different than you came. You came here wondering if you've touched him, if any of it landed, if you matter the way you make him matter. And now you know how to see it. Not in his words, but in his vault, in his shields, in his growth, in his blueprints, in his memory, in his tears, in his staying. You are never again going to have to guess where you stand with a man. The signs are always there. They were always there. You just needed somebody to teach you the language. So hear these truths and let them settle into your bones. You are not asking for too much. You are not too deep. You are not too emotional. You are not hard to love. You are exactly enough. You have always been exactly enough. And the right man's soul will recognize you the way a lock recognizes its key. Not because you performed, because you fit. Stop chasing. Stop begging. Stop shrinking. Start standing in the fullness of who you are. And let the man who can meet you there reveal himself through these signs. And when he shows them, when he opens, covers, grows, builds, remembers, breaks, and stays, receive it like the sacred thing it is. Because a man's soul is not given twice, and a woman who holds one well will never have to wonder if she was loved. She'll know. She'll know every single day. Carry yourself like a woman who knows, not arrogant, knowing. There's a difference, and the whole world can feel it. Walk into every room, every date, every relationship as a woman who can read a man's soul and who guards her own. That woman is magnetic. That woman is dangerous to games and irresistible to kings. That woman is you. She has always been you, and today she woke up. If this hit your spirit today, drop a heart in the comments and let another woman hear this too. Because somewhere out there tonight, there's a sister sitting in her car, phone in her hand, wondering if she matters. And sometimes the best thing we can do for our sisters is say, "Here, this is for you." Share it with her. Be the reason she stops guessing. And until next time, remember what I told you. Men do not lead the places where their soul can breathe. Be that place for the right man. And never ever settle for being anything less.